All right, so I think what I want to do here is kind of clear the slate on this for a moment and show you more of the fundamentals of Grasshopper just from a purely operational standpoint, okay? So think of it this way. Um, I am not teaching you how to develop a Grasshopper definition. I'm teaching you how to use a Grasshopper definition. So as such, the things that you really need to know is generally what is its relationship to Rhino, what are some of the basic features that it has, and how do I actually create an output geometry with it. Okay, so the first thing you need to know as an absolute essential to how geometry lives in both Rhino and Grasshopper is that if you can think of Rhino as like real space, like it's a real live model, Grasshopper is just the drawing of it. Okay, Grasshopper is ethereal. It doesn't exist in your Rhino model. Okay, the geometry that it creates. So when I go back to my model, right, you can see the geometry there. That's clear. But I can't click it. If I click that, I can only select the purple thing, right? I can only select the purple void, right? The reason that is because with Grasshopper, you keep producing these parametric models, and once you make it live, once you push it from Grasshopper into Rhino, it becomes live geometry. And you can modify it just like anything else that you use Rhino for. You can do Boolean functions or splits and take sections and all that other stuff. So let me just show you that real quick, and I don't want you to actually emulate this right now, and I don't think I've given the definition to you yet, but these outputs are the actual geometry. And in order to create something with it, you right-click it and you bake it, and you'll be putting it on a layer, and I'll talk to you about assigning layers and stuff in greater detail a little bit later on. And then once those are hidden, this becomes an actual piece of geometry in Rhino. Does that make sense? So it's called baking. I don't know where they came up with that, but anyway, so let's quickly kind of reel everything back and step away from the definition that I gave you, and jump into a fundamental exercise for understanding how geometry is created and modified in Grasshopper. Okay, and do I want to do a new one? Yeah, let's just do a new one. So if you could, Grasshopper is a plugin for Rhino, but you don't open it up like you would Maxwell. So you're just going to go into your command bar. I'll close that real fast. You're just going to go into your command bar and type in Grasshopper and hit enter. And it'll take a second to initialize, but it'll bring you to a blank slate. Mine happens to have this open, but yours will look like this. Now you should know in terms of visibility and user workflow, Grasshopper being a plugin is always going to exist in front of Rhino. So you kind of have to, especially because we only have one screen here, that's really a pain. When I'm doing it on like my own thing, I have two screens, and you put Grasshopper off into another. Is it not?
Yeah, is it gonna load something?
How many of you had a loading error?
You just close it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I must have missed that one. Okay. So, so the way that I set this up is frequently I'll make a window out of that, and then make that a left side window, and then I'll make this one a right side window, but I have dual screens right now, so I'll push it over there and then bring it back. And because I need to actually see what I'm doing, I try to minimize my left or my right hand panel a little bit, and then I'll pull the window back that way, just so I can barely see like what layer I'm on or something like that. Yeah, it just depends on what you guys want to do with it. But and I will say this: it is exponentially easier to use when you have two screens, which is why I'm trying to get them to do a two-screen setup here. Any questions so far? All we did was open it, right? So here's the cool part, right? We're going to actually build something that is parametric, and the non-cool part is that it's going to be really simple. It's just going to be a box, okay? So the user interface is like this. This is what you would call, I don't know what the technical term is for it exactly. I think they call it a sketch pad or a work pad, something like that. In Dynamo, it's called a sketch pad. But the work surface is where all that stuff is going to get dropped in, and that stuff that I'm referring to are called nodes or components. And while you will be presented with already built definitions where all you have to change are the numbers, real quickly I'm going to show you just a mega simple version of how you actually create geometry. And so the geometry that you're going to create are these up here. And very similar to Rhino, if you look at them, right, you have, right here it says CRV, that's short for curve. And then right next to it you have SRF, that's short for surface. And then right next to that you have mesh, right? MSH is short for mesh. But over here in Rhino you have curve, surface, and mesh. So, you know, the relationship is very, very close there. And for a basic understanding, there are different types of geometry, basic types of geometry called primitives. And those primitives are in the submenus here. And so, for instance, under the curve menu, your simple curve types like line or arc or polyline, they're going to be here. So you have lines, you have all these other really crazy types of lines. You have a polygon, a circle, a rectangle. So those basic elements are called primitives, and they live here. I'm going to stop quite a bit while doing this to ask if there are any questions. I'm going to do that frequently on this one. No more questions at the moment? Okay. So then you might guess that the box command is going to be here under surface. And it's also under freeform. And there are a couple of different ways that you can do it. There's a box rectangle, or there's a box 2-point. And so they're all boxes. And this is the part that actually is pretty powerful about Grasshopper, more so than you would expect in Rhino. So I'm going to drop in both of these. In order to drop them in, all you do is click on it, and then this little icon will pop up. Click somewhere in the workspace, and it drops in. And I'm going to go back up to primitive, and I'm going to go down to box rectangle now. Click that, and drop it in. Okay, so like I said, they are both creating a simple box. They're creating exactly the same geometry, but they look drastically different. So here, what you have on the left-hand side is what we call inputs. And then the middle part with the black band, that's called, that's just the tag or the title for it. And then on the right-hand side, that's called an output. And the best way that you can think of this, I think, is like an assembly line, right? You have to feed in the material, it processes the material, and then it, you know, pushes out another thing at the end, something new that it became in the process. So you can hover over these, and you'll see that it creates a description. So the title of the command, the description of the command. So this creates a box defined by 2 points, and then it has this message underneath. Okay, the message is essentially your program check, right? It's showing you a preview of information flowing through that particular node, I guess. Do I want to go with node or component? I'll probably call them components more. Anyway, so that's showing you the information that flows through. Additionally, if you hover over on the left, those have the same kinds of descriptors. So we have an empty point parameter being placed into this box input of A. And then likewise, that also says first corner, The next one says second corner. So since this is box 2 point, it makes sense that we would have to give it 2 points. You guys following so far? Okay. Now here is a base plane. The base plane is essentially saying, where does this geometry start? Where does it become generated? And it's preloaded with basic information. Usually if it's a base plane, it's going to start at the origin. And that's what the world XY means. It's starting at the origin of our workspace, which right now I don't even know where that is. So maybe we should find that first. Oh, it's right next to my model. Okay, I gotta move my model, I think. I'll push that over. Yeah. You guys should be able to see this. If you did a fresh Rhino file, you'll definitely see it. If you didn't do a fresh Rhino file, try to find your origin, and that's what you're gonna see. Yeah, it's going to be pretty small. Okay, so I am going to split our video here, but what am I trying to say? I'm going to split the video here, and we're going to move into actually inputting information in the next segment.